So this is content on natural selection and culture, how we can adapt and how our adaptability and culture shape our behavior. So we might ask the question, could our role be adaptive? Could our behavior be adaptive in any particular situation? And you can see how in this little image up here of the giraffe, we have a giraffe and we have a situation. And in the first situation, the tree has nice low leaves and the giraffe can reach the leaves without too long a neck. And in the second situation, the tree has higher leaves and the giraffe can't eat, so the giraffe can't adapt. And so in the third situation, a giraffe is born with eventually the long-necked giraffes can live longer, and so the long-necked giraffes reproduce and have young who also have long necks, and so then we have an evolutionary process. Natural selection. Natural selection is the process through which the fittest genes are more likely to reproduce and thus more likely to have their genes survive. So what makes a person fit? Is it possible in some way that you can think of that fear, a tendency to be afraid, could help a person survive? And if you sit with that a moment, you'll say, well, of course it could. If a person is afraid and there are a lot of dangerous things around, they're less likely to die from those dangerous things. And so then in that case, people who weren't afraid might die if there was an environment, a situation with many dangerous things. And so these individuals who had higher levels of fear would get together and reproduce, and their young would also have higher levels of fear, and thus the trait of fear would be passed down through the generations. So fear could be adaptive. What about trust, caution, bravado? Could any of these things be adaptive and help a person survive or help human beings in general survive? Well, all of that is called natural selection, survival of the fittest. Could different characteristics be adaptive in different environments? In the giraffe example, is it possible that long necks might be adaptive in one environment and that really good grinding teeth might be adaptive in another environment where the tree leaves tended to be thicker and more fibrous? Could fear be adaptive in a situation with a lot of dangerous things around, but not adaptive in a situation that's relatively safe? So there is the interaction between situation and environment. Here's an example of trust. This might be very adaptive in this academy where we're playing trust games, but if this guy is too trusting, he might jump into the arms of people who are not trustworthy. Think about yourself. Do you think that you would need different traits or behaviors in order to survive if you were living in a big city? What if you were living in Alaska? Might you want to have a body type that would help keep your body warm? What if you had to live in the suburbs of the United States? What traits would you need? Maybe you'd need a trait of like not showing emotion or feeling emotion. So we learn what is adaptive through something we call theory of mind, which allows us to imagine other people's motivations. So we at least begin by becoming aware that other people have beliefs and desires that motivate their behavior, even if their beliefs are incorrect. That means we can learn about others even if we're not taught. Maybe you already know about some of your professors because you have talked to other people. Some people have greater awareness than others. People with autism do not develop theory of mind with more severe autism. And so this brings us to culture, and culture is what emerges typically from a group of people who've tended to live in a particular place. So not only are there genes passed on which are promoting certain traits, but also there's a whole set of rituals and habits and food preferences that grow up among those people, and this defines their culture. So here we can see Certainly some practical things like the art, drama, music, food tend to have the same religion. Behaviors, like even things like how close they should get to people when they talk. Hopefully they have some rituals which can really help bind people together, some customs, share a language, beliefs, attitudes. Those are all components of culture. One of the biggest distinctions in psychology that we use for culture is the difference between individualism and collectivism. So individualism fosters independence and individual achievement. And that's how we are in the United States and Australia. People want to stand out. They want to express themselves and be individualistic and have personal choice. The relationships that people have might tend to be more egalitarian. That might be manifested in the fact that, for example, I prefer to be called by my first name instead of by a title. And flexibility in roles, upward mobility. And also with that thing that maybe comes to create so many problems for us, which is property and individual ownership. So some countries are really highly individualistic and others are highly collectivistic, which means they foster interdependence and group success, that an individual would feel a much greater sense of success if the group passed than if he or she as an individual passed. And this would promote adherence to norms, like there would be a lot of respect for authority and elders and for the group consensus. Roles would be stable and hierarchical, very important, and we might have shared property and group ownership, and our most extreme examples would be China, Korea, and Japan. So these are the range of factors linked to culture. And I'll invite you to go on and think about culture as not just stemming from the same people growing up in the same area, but also people working in the same environment. So I feel that the workplace culture here at Diné College is really respectful and not too rushed. There's a really different culture at the University of Arizona. It feels quite a bit more isolating, and it's both cooperative and competitive in the sense that from the faculty perspective, faculty want to work together to produce research, and yet there's sort of a competition to publish more than someone else. So different cultures have different, and in turn, those cultures might bring out different behaviors in you. So if you attend here at Diné College, you might feel relaxed in your educational approach, but if you go to the University of Arizona, you might feel a little more tense and agitated as you have the need to compete. So a little summary of what we had. We looked at situations that can influence people, including authority, assigned roles, pressure, and availability of channels for alternate action. We looked at construals and how they can affect people's judgments, and we included the fundamental attribution error, schemas, and stereotypes. We looked at emotion, its involvement in automatic processing, and its absence in controlled processing. We looked at natural selection, and we looked at individualist and collectivistic cultures. Thanks for tuning in.